to Saturday Night Cinema. If you don't know by now, I'm your host, Sawyer Saintson, and this week we're gonna jump into another, bundle of stories with Creepshow. So, released November 2nd, 1982. Director, the legendary George A. Romero, of course. Writer, horror legend, Stephen King. And special effects artist, Tom Savini. Now, sometimes I don't mention the special effects people, but I mean, Savini not only worked special effects, but he had a small little part in this. But there were just some really great costumings and effects in this that I just couldn't pass up a chance to talk about one of my favorite people in the makeup world. Anywho, so before we get into the meat of things, because you know how I like to do this. I like to do the cast and then tell you about the story, and then the cast and tell you about the story, instead of just going straight down the list of cast. So, just wanted to hit on a few points. If you don't know, this is actually based off of a comic book from the 50s called Creepshow. So everything in this movie is supposed to look like it came, out of a comic book. Some of the colors used, some of the angles that you see, especially in the Father's Day, which is the first one that kicks off the, shebang here. Also within some of the little effects that he does, like the framing, where he'll have, a frame and then the film inside of it, which is fantastic. I love the little nods to comic books. I like comic books. I like comic book characters. It's all around a great thing. So, we start off the movie with our, the prelogue setting up everything. The father, who is played by Tom Atkins, his name is Stan, but he's Billy's father, and he's going off about, how he told him that he doesn't need to be looking at these comics and they're terrible, and he actually ends up slapping him, and you can see the print on Billy's face. Billy is played by Joe Hill or Joe King, Stephen King's son. And so we see, this power struggle between dad and son loves, horror and comics, and dad has just had quite enough of it. The mom is played by Ava Jean, and she's just well, did you have to be so hard on him? Did you have to? And they're just kind of going about their, evening, and while Billy's up in his room steaming, and outside of his window he sees the Creepshow ghoul, which his dad throws the Creepshow comic into the trash, but the ghoul comes and turns the pages and shows us what our first story is, which is Father's Day. Now, this is the one that so many people will recognize because there's memes of it all the time, especially around Father's Day, right? Of course. So our cast, we have Carrie Nye, who plays Sylvia. Then we have, I'm gonna butcher this name. it's Vivica Lindfors, maybe that's how you pronounce that. She plays Aunt Bedelia. Then we have Ed Harris as Hank, and Warner Shook as Richard, Elizabeth Reagan as Cass. Then we have John Lemire as Nathan. And then as Nathan's corpse, because you gotta give props to the one that had to, fumble around and, heavy corpse makeup and clothing. That was John Appelis. I think is how you pronounce it. You guys, y'all been here around long enough. I'm not the best at names. I'm sorry. So we are told the story of how Aunt Bedelia pretty much murdered her father, Nathan, on Father's Day. And that she comes back to the house once a year, every year. You can almost set your clock to it. She's not really remorseful about it, guys. I don't know why she comes and visits his grave every year. So, they're like, story is she beat him over the head with a marble ashtray, because he was demanding and, just all around terrible. So Aunt Bedelia arrives and she's got her bottle of Jim Beam and she sits by Nathan's graveside and she recounts the events of that night. We see a flashback of her in the kitchen trying to make his cake, and he's just at the dining room table banging his cane, I want my cake. That's probably what you've seen everywhere on Father's Day. I want my cake. You, calling her names and saying that everyone's just out, for his money. And, so, now listen, Bedelia and Nathan had some trouble to begin with anyways, right? It's kind of thought that he had something to do with the love of, her life dying. And, guys, when I say love of her life, she was, really late into her 50s when she, fell in love with this guy. So, it was about damn time for her. And then he ends up having a hunting accident. So, Bedelia loses it and bashes him upside the head with an ashtray, just like the rumors had it. So, also, I don't understand why, there's this just family graveyard out in the back of the mansion. I couldn't do that, y'all. Listen, I like cemeteries, but I don't want a family cemetery in my backyard. You know what I'm saying? It would just be, what if I had some, what if, with Bedelia, I had some, pimped up, bad juju with some of the spirits back there, So she's just going in on him at his grave about, how basically he ruined her life. And then all of a sudden, a hand pops up from out of the grave. And Nathan pops out and is just repeating, I want my cake. Bedelia, I want my cake. And strangles her to death. So, it gets, dark outside and everyone's wondering, where Bedelia is. So they send Hank out to find her. Well, Hank's roaming around out there trying to find her, and he, slips and falls into Nathan's open grave. And, well, gosh, who do you know would be there? Man, Bedelia. But, like, the tombstone starts to move. And y'all, now, while watching this, I was like, that tombstone would have not done that to me. I would have been up and moving out of there. The corpse might have gotten me. He might have surprised me, but I would have not let that tombstone fall on my head like it did Hank. Now, come on. It gave you plenty enough time to move your ass, and you didn't. So, you know, he sees Nathaniel's corpse before before the tombstone smashes his brain in. But it's just too late. So, back in the mansion, you know, Cass, who is Hank's wife, she's one of the, I guess, grandchildren of some ancestry to Nathan. She's like, where is he? You know, their mother, Sylvia, is like, you know, I'll go, like, get the food at least. You know, she's gonna go check out some stuff. So she goes into the kitchen and she notices that there's, like, dirty footprints. And she, like, opens the door and it's completely dark. Yet there are things on the stove just, like, boiling over. She calls out for the, you know, for the maid or cook or whoever. And their face gets smashed up against the window of the door. And so Sylvia's like, ah! And then Nathaniel grabs her and tears off her head. So, you know, cut to some time later, Richard and Cass, who are brother and sister, are like, oh my gosh, where is she? She's not back. I'm getting, like, you know, Cass is like, I'm getting scared. Richard, like, come on. And he's like, I'm just going to go find another bottle of wine. Why not? Everyone's disappeared. Why not another bottle of wine, right? So they head to the kitchen and Richard notices the dirty footprints. But when they come up to the door, there's Nathaniel with Sylvia's beautiful head on a platter, icing atop it with candles. And he says, I got my cake. And the two siblings are just, ah. And scene. So that's Father's Day. It's great. Don't get me wrong. Like, even though it's probably the most recognizable for most people, it's still a great way to kick off the movie. So the next one, which, I mean, has to be, like, one of my favorites of the stories here, is The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill. Now, we only have 2 cast members in this, and the main cast member that is in this is Stephen King himself. And it's not a cameo, guys. Like, he is the main star of this little short. And he does a fantastic job. It's great. And then Bingo O'Malley, which he's a legend. We talked about him in Two Evil Eyes. He plays Jordy's dad, and also the cameo little parts of, like, the doctor and, like, the university, like, scientist or whatever. He played those parts in, like, a little bit of disguise. So, we cut to this opening, which is fantastic. Jordy is out in his yard in Portland, Maine. Of course, it's Maine. What else would it be with Stephen King, right? And by golly, a meteor just, like, comes barreling out of the sky right onto his property. So he goes to check it out. He touches it and burns himself. Don't touch things that are hot. Duh. Anyways, so then he's thinking, oh shit, yeah, I'm gonna sell this to the college and it's my meteor, so I get to name my price. And then he has a flash to, like, you know, like a little daydream. And he's basically asking like $200 for the meteor. Like, 200? Come on, Jordy, more than 200, baby. It's a meteor. Like, you can kick that price up a little bit. But we see him haggling with the scientist that's, you know, in the college. The meteor department is what it said. Poor little Jordy. He just, you know, some backwater country folk. He don't know. So, cut to him, you know, out of his daydream. He has a bright idea of, well, this thing's hot, so I need to cool it down so that I can grab it and pick it up. So he goes, fills a bucket up with water. But he notices that his fingers are starting to blister, and he keeps putting them in his mouth, by the way. Bad. You'll see why that's bad in a little bit. But he keeps sticking his fingers in his mouth and sucking on his fingers. So he gets the water and he pours it on the meteor. And guys, do you know what happens with like super hot things when they change temperature too fast? Well, that meteor just busted right open. And Jordy's like, oh, damn it. Good job, Jordy. You done ruined it like everything. And so then he has another little daydream where, you know, he's trying to negotiate with the scientist and he's not getting anywhere. The scientist is just laughing in his face. Poor little Jordy. Can't do nothing right. Well, cut back to him and he's like, oh, he picks it up and he gets the meteor juice on him and he's like, oh, gross. Wipes it all over himself, right? But he's able to get the meteor into the bucket and he just sits it on his porch and he's like, I'm just gonna go in and we'll deal with that later. So he goes in and he turns on some TV, and guys, you know what he turns on? You know what's on the TV? It's one of my favorite things other than horror movies. It's wrestling. Some good old wrestling. And we're talking like Bob Backlund wrestling. Like, it was actually Bob Backlund versus Sika wrestling. Like, we're talking like way back wrestling, right, guys? Ugh. Good old Jordy just watching some wrestling, kicking back, I don't know what he was drinking. I can't remember. It was something in a bottle though. Well, anyways, so he kind of falls asleep, and when he wakes up, he realizes that he's got some green stuff on his fingers, right? And it's in his tongue. He just realizes that he's got a problem going on here. Green is just popping up everywhere that he's touched. And so what does he do? I mean, what anyone would do when it looks like there's plants growing out of you, right? Grab the orange juice and the vodka. Make yourself a big old picture of Screwdriver, right? I mean, I would drink. For sure, I would drink. Some time passes. He gets up, goes to the bathroom. He's got a full moss beard by now. He's covered in it. He takes off his clothes. He's got it all over his chest, and then he looks down and he goes, oh no, not there. You know what I'm talking about. And he's like, I'm gonna get in the bath. He starts drawing a bath. But then his dad's face pops up in the mirror and he's like, Jordy, don't do that. That's a bad idea. Don't do it. You know, and he's trying to talk to his dad, but, you know, his dad goes away pretty quickly. So Jordy's like, oh, I shouldn't do this. I don't, but the plant, moss, whatever, is basically taking control of his brain. And, well, he gets in. And we see a picture of the outside of his house, right? it looked desolate before, but now in the middle of Maine, looks like a Florida swamp. Just missing the alligators, right? So morning comes. We see poor little Jordy. He's now head to toe in a moss suit. What are those suits called? The ghillie suits. Ghillie suits. That's what it looks like. It looks like a ghillie suit. Looked like he about to go try to lay in the grass and go hunting. Well, he just can't take it. And, shotgun to what was his face at one point. Now it's just a grassy mess. So that's the lonesome death of Jordy Vale. Poor little Jordy. So this is what I tell everybody. If it ain't yours, don't touch it. Don't touch it. Don't touch it. All right, and so moving right along to our next little story here. So this story is the second longest story of all of the stories from Creepshow. And it's got like two of the biggest names in the movie. I mean, they're like, listen, there are big names in this movie. There are. But like two heavy hitters in this one thing. And I mean, it's great. It's one of my favorites because I'm thinking this is a perfect way to get rid of someone you don't need to be around, right? Anywho, so we've got something to tide you over. Y'all, I love the little pun. I love the pun in this. Well, it's a cute little pun. I love some puns. So we've got Leslie Nielsen as Richard. We have Ted Danson as Harry. And then we have Galen Ross as Becky. Now, we don't really see her very much. We just see her in like some little video footage. Some disturbing video footage. But she's still, she's still part of the crew in this one because there's only 3, characters. So, Mr. Richard finds out that Harry's been screwing around with Becky, his wife. And shows up at Harry's house and is basically like, listen, you can come with me. We need to have a little talk. Now, Richard is menacing, and does seem like he's going to do some very bad things to Harry. But Harry, goes along with him because, basically, Becky's in trouble. So, anywho. So they go out for a ride. And it's Richard's private beach. See, this already isn't boding well for Harry. Not at all. So they go out to the to the beach, the edge of the water, and there's a hole. And Harry runs out because he thinks it's Becky, and lo and behold, Becky's not in there. He turns around and Richard's like, "Hey, jump in the hole. I got a gun. You're gonna jump in the hole." And he's like, "Oh, God, I don't want to be shot, so I'll just jump in this hole." And then Richard tells him to start burying himself. And he's like, "No. Hell no. I'm not gonna bury myself." But, Richard reminds him, "Okay, cool. I'll just shoot you, dude." And he fires off a warning shot. And so Harry's like, "Fine." So Harry gets buried up to, just his head is showing. He's just a little head popping out of the sand. And then Richard goes off to get his equipment. He comes back with a video camera. He sets up a video feed. And then he sets up a TV that's going to run a live feed of Becky. Now, Becky has been buried way further down the beach. And the tide is coming in and is just, washing over her face. And she only, has a little bit to like catch her breath before she has to hold it again for waves coming in. And the whole time she's just, yelling for help, but unfortunately no one can hear her because he owns a lot of land there. There's nobody for miles and miles. So, Richard packs up his stuff and that he needs, and he just leaves, leaves Harry there to suffer the same fate that Becky is. And he drives back up to his beach house and turns on, or lifts up the painting that has security cameras, or the security feed, and we see the tide starting to come in on Harry, and we get this really great shot of him completely underwater, just looking crazy, and he's just like, I'm gonna get you, Richard. So cut to Richard, getting ready for his bath time, his shower. And he hears some things, and he checks the window outside. He doesn't see anything, but we start to see this creepy smoke rolling in. And while he's in the shower, the smoke magically opens the door, and we get a glimpse of some wet, mossy, well, not moss, seaweed covered something. But you can't see him on his security cameras in the house. So, but, Richard, hears it in the middle of his shower, and so he goes out, and he's like, who's there? And you hear this just, moaning and stuff, coming up the stairs, and Richard grabs his gun, and he's just like, who's there? And finally he comes face to face with who's there outside of his bedroom door. It's Becky and Harry. They've come for their revenge. And so Richard does try to shoot them, and it doesn't work, of course. They're ghosts. Guns don't work against ghosts. Hello, Richard. I don't know if you're into horror movies, but it seems like you need to be watching some. So, he tries everything he can. He even throws the gun at them. Goes to lock himself in the bathroom, and he turns around, and well, guess who's there? To get him. Yeah. So, in the end, Richard suffers the same fate as what Harry and Becky did. They bury him up to his neck in the sand and just wait for him to drown. You could probably, I wouldn't say you could get away with it, but, it's a fun time to torture someone with, I guess, right? So, moving on to The Crate. Now, this is the longest story, by just a little bit. And it's got some pretty good names in it as well. We have Holbrook. I don't know why that's hard for me to say. As Henry, college professor is what he seems to be. And then we have, playing his wife, we have Adrienne Barbeau. Again, Two Angry Eyes, or Two Evil Eyes, I'm sorry. But in this she plays Wilma, or just call me Billy, everybody does. I'm sorry, she says that so many times in the movie to a point where it was like obnoxious. Then we have Fritz Weaver as Dexter. And he is a colleague and friend of Henry's at the college. We have Robert Harper, who is Charlie, and he's a student there. We have Don Kiefer, who plays Mike the janitor. And then we have Daryl Farici, I think is how you pronounce that. And he plays Fluffy. And you'll figure out who Fluffy is in just a minute. So, we start off with the, it seems like the college is, some of the professors from the college are having, you know, some kind of get together, some kind of party. And we start to see that, like, Henry is, like, just wanting to get rid of Billy, right? And she just, along with saying, just call me Billy, everyone does, she also reminds Henry just how worthless he is in her eyes. And says, what would you ever do without me? You know, and to what he's just like, I don't know. But so in the middle of this party, Dexter gets a call. And it seems like Mike the janitor has found some kind of weird crate from an Arctic expedition from like 1800 something, right? Underneath the stairs. So Dexter's like, I'll be there in a little bit. Hightails it out to the college. Shortly after, Billy and Henry leave to go home. And Billy says that she's got classes or something. You know, and she's off. But, like, Henry keeps having, like, these little flashes of, like, killing her. You know, like, he's, like, taking off his tie as she, like, walks by, and he just has, like, just wants to, like, strangle her. So, cut to Dexter at the college. And him and Mike the janitor are able to get the crate out from underneath the stairs, and they put it in one of the like basement labs on the counter, and they're prying it open, and they don't get it like fully open. When the janitor looks in and sees these eyes, and then all of a sudden, like whatever, like he just, for some reason, he decides to stick his hand in there, which is always a bad idea. Don't go sticking your hand in dark crates that you don't know anything about. Anyways, so he starts getting mauled, right? Like his arms are just like getting tore off. And Dexter is trying to help him get loose. He's like, you know, pulling at him. Well, then like the like the crate like falls over a little bit, not fully, but the janitor is also like just like sitting like underneath it, and he's just like, you know, and before they can like, you know, secure the crate again, the monster Fluffy reaches out and just starts like, you know, completely gnawing at the janitor. So Dexter just like fucking runs. He's gone. He's out. He's up the stairs, and he runs into Charlie, who, why a student is there that late at night, I don't even know why. But he's like, you know, he's trying to tell Charlie, like, there's some kind of, like, thing. And, you know, Charlie, but he's super, like, amped up and just, like, not making any sense. So Charlie's just like, ooh, calm down. Like, let's go see, you know. And they see a shit ton of blood. But somehow the crate has moved its way back to underneath the stairs. And so Charlie goes to investigate, and he's like, "Oh, it looks like there's nothing." And then all of a sudden, like Fluffy, who looks like a Sasquatch, to be honest, pops out and mauls Charlie. So Dexter runs out, like, goes to Henry's house and is trying to tell Henry about all this, right? But so Henry's like not paying attention very well, because he's thinking, wonder if I can use this to my advantage. So he puts some drugs in Dexter's drink and makes Dexter pass out. And so Henry takes this opportunity to go to the college. He writes his lovely wife a little note, basically saying like, hey, so Dexter's got into some trouble here with a young co-ed. Like, I'm going to the college and I need you to meet me there, you know, to help with the situation, because you're so much better at things than I am. You know, you keep such a level head. So while she's on her way and everything, Henry like cleans up all the blood, makes like it look like there's like no trace of anything that had happened there, right? And so when Billy gets there, he tells her like, you know, the co-ed's underneath the stairs and she won't come out. She's really shaken up by the ordeal, like, you know, whatever. So can you like coax her out? I think you're the only one that would be able to get her out. And so Billy goes and goes underneath the stairs, and she's like, there's nothing here. And Henry's like getting pissed, because he's like, God damn it, where's that thing at? Like, you know, like it's supposed to like kill her. So he like starts like bashing her up against the crate and like, come out. And he's just shaking her and bashing her, and she like fights him off. And just as she's like about to, you know, crawl herself out of the crate vicinity, Fluffy pops out and eats her. And so Henry's just so happy. He goes home, acts like nothing happened, you know, talking to Dexter, and it's just like, yeah, whatever. He, before he goes home, gosh, this is a big part. Before he goes home, he's able to like lock the chains back on the crate, and he drives the crate to the quarry and throws the crate into the quarry, where he hopes that Fluffy will just drown in his crate. And that's what he tells Dexter, you know, because Dexter's like, are you sure that it died? And then, you know, the ending is there's Fluffy popping up out of the crate. So, guess there's gonna be, you know, a Squatch on the loose. Now we come up to our last story, which after the crate and after, you know, something to tide you over, this story just feels kind of not needed. I don't know. Y'all, also, I don't like bugs, so if this wasn't in there, I wouldn't be sorry. I would be fine, because I don't like bugs. I don't like bugs. I don't like it. So this is, they're creeping up on you. And we have E.G. Marshall as Upton Pratt. And then we have David Early as White. And then there's some other actors that do voice work. It's like he's talking to them on the phone. But they're not credited, so I couldn't really find out who these people were. And you really don't even see much of White either. You just see like this much of his face through the peephole, right? So we have Upton Pratt, who seems like he's like a wealthy billionaire, like trader of some sort. But he has spent a whole lot of money to have his penthouse like completely germ proof, right? He even has like a trash chute where he pushes a button and it just sucks the trash right down. I don't know where the trash goes, you guys, but if I could have that in my house, I would. Just, oh look, there it goes. I don't have to worry about it. Out of sight, out of mind. So, Pratt, we see, has an issue. There was a cockroach found in his apartment. He sprays it dead. And I mean like overkill spray, right? And he just like goes back to his desk, turns on his computer. He can see, you know, stocks and whatnot. Also, like, while you're doing business that late at night, like, just go to bed, man. Just go to bed. But he gets a call from an associate of his and telling him that it seems like someone that he didn't like, or that he had, like, issues with, had killed himself. You know, but they're talking, and he's like, you know, he's just kind of like, ha ha ha, you know, whatever, good riddance, like, you know, just kind of being completely insensitive to the fact that someone just committed suicide. But he's worried about his bugs, you know, and so he makes a call, and like, wouldn't you know it that, you know, the exterminator handyman, you know, is on vacation with his wife and kids in his time of bug issues. I mean, one cockroach is not an emergency, I wouldn't think. But anyways, so he also gets a call from the like the handyman, you know, saying, hey, Mr. Pratt, I'm sorry, like, I'll take care of it, you know, I'll have White come up, like, whatever. And he's like, if you don't handle this by like a certain time, like, you know, you'll be out of a job. And he's just threatening, and, you know, you'll take your kids to Disney World, like, on welfare next year type situation. Just, you know, what millionaires normally do to, you know, people. Just threaten taking their livelihood away from them. But so we see that there's like the cockroach that he thought that he killed is now gone, and he tries to, like, it actually like ends up on his hand, and he tries to, like, you know, shoot it down the trash chute, and he finally gets it to go down, and he's just preoccupied with this, you know. And then he gets a call from the man who committed suicide, his wife, telling him, like, that she wishes that he dies a horrible death, and that, you know, how rotten of a person and man he is, and just, you know, letting him have what he needs to have. He kind of deserves it. Then Mr. Pratt tries to make him some food. I don't know what he's doing in this food processor, y'all. It looks gross. It's like cereal plus beans. I don't know. It looked nasty. But he finds like part of a cockroach in it. Yeah. Cockroach in your food for a germaphobe. Probably gonna set him off, right? Oh, it did. He pours out the cereal, and there's cockroaches all in it. Just all in it, right? And then there's more on like his computer screen and everything, and then there's like a rolling blackout, right? Well, cockroaches are everywhere, and he can't see, but he turns on his emergency light system. And a little bit before like all of the like roaches started happening, White had come up to his door and was like, of course, Mr. Pratt, we'll take care of it, Mr. Pratt, anything for you, Mr. Pratt, you know, just kind of being like condescending. It was great. But when Pratt hits the emergency like generator button, he's like trying to get a hold of White, and finally, like, you know, he gets a hold of him, and he's stuck in an elevator, and White's like, dude, there's nothing I can do. I'm stuck in an elevator till the power comes on. So, and you can see like when the power generator comes on, there's like cockroaches all in the light fixtures. Ew, it's so gross. And so the power comes back on after a while of like, you know, him being tortured by these like roaches everywhere. And he locks himself into what I assume is his bedroom. I mean, it's real tiny, guys. It's real tiny. I mean, for a penthouse, you would think that it would be a little bit bigger. But, so he locks himself in there. And, you know, he's like, ha, 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 ha. Like, I won. Like, y'all can't get me in here. Whatever. And then he notices that, like, the sheets, it looks like something's moving under the sheets, and he pulls it back, and it's just mounds of cockroaches on his bed, and he's just like, ah. And then cut to the next day, White's, you know, ringing his doorbell, knocking, Mr. Pratt, hey, Mr. Pratt. And then, like, we pan over to Mr. Pratt's body, and there are like cockroaches like popping out of his skin and out of his mouth, and just, it's gross. It's gross. And then they like pan back away from, you know, the body and everything, and there's like at least cockroaches like knee high in the room, just all over. It's so gross. But that's Creepshow. I love all of the ones except for the bug one. I mean, to be honest, it kind of like, to be the last like thing, maybe it would have been better if it was like towards the beginning of the movie and not like the climax. Like, to be honest, like I really think the climax, you know, the great send-off should be, you know, the crate. But, oh, how could I forget? So, some people find the Creepshow book, right? The Trashmen, Tom Savini is one of them. And they notice that the voodoo doll, like, send away has been already sent for. Well, guys, who do you think did it? You're right, it was Billy. And we see that Billy has cut a piece of his father's clothing and it's wrapped it around the voodoo doll. And it's just going at the voodoo doll. Teaching his dad a lesson, right? Yeah. That's how it really ends, you know? I mean, that's how the movie's like left off. But going from like, you know, they're creeping in on you to like that, like it should have been the crate and then like done. That'd been good. Or like Father's Day should have been at the end, because then, you know, we have a little kid like tormenting his father, you know, getting his revenge. Anywho, you guys know what time it is. It's time to get out the handy dandy bowl. See? And I got something. Let's see what it is. Ooh. Okay, guys. Looks like we're gonna do another Stephen King one with Sleepwalkers. I've never seen Sleepwalkers. I've heard about it. Never watched it. Oh, allergies. Sorry about that, guys. But anyways, come join me next week for Sleepwalkers. Have a good evening. Bye.